The rise in anxiety, depression, and other mental issues is impossible to ignore. Now, there's a lot of discussion about why, what's the reason, what's the causality, and those sort of things. But what's correlation and what's causality? All those questions. But you at least cannot ignore the fact that this generation, that our present day, is more fearful, more afraid, more anxious, more worried, more depressed than previous generations who actually knew some more dramatic things like World War and starvation and those sort of things. And yet we are more depressed and anxious. I think we would be wise to consider why Paul was able to write to the Corinthians, whose lives and well-being were being constantly threatened by persecution. So when Paul wrote these words to the Corinthian church, they weren't living in peaceful days. At least it wasn't peaceful for being a Christian. And he wrote to them, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. Let your reasonableness be known to everyone. The Lord is at hand. And he said, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. Now, in that passage, Paul is not instructing the church to ignore the danger that they were in, to pretend that they were not afraid of what might befall them. And certainly, he is not calling them to put on a happy face to cover their anxieties. If that's what you think that passage is about, you have missed it. Paul's instruction to rejoice and not be anxious rests on the last phrase of verse 4, the Lord is at hand, and verse 7. Verse 7 says, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Having the peace of God does not mean that you don't have troubles in this world. In fact, Paul was writing to people who had trouble, and the reality of it is that they were going to have trouble for the rest of their days. The peace of God does not mean that you have plenty of money in your bank account, that your kids are doing perfect in school, that the government is moving in a way that you like, that the weather is always wonderful, and that your health is perfect, and that all those things are great, and you can just put on Facebook, my life is great, wish yours was like mine. No. Having the peace of God means that you trust that everything is in the sovereign, omnipotent hand of God. That's different. That means that even if all of the world is falling apart, you can be anxious about nothing, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God, who is sovereign over all things and powerful over all things. The worst thing this side of heaven that can be done to you is bodily harm and death. But Jesus commanded us not even to fear those who threaten to kill us. In Luke chapter 12, Jesus said, I tell you, my friends, don't fear those who kill the body, and after that have nothing more that they can do. Now, why would he say that? Because the worst thing they can do this side of heaven is harm your body and kill you, but they have no authority over your eternity. Those who have the peace of God have confidence that their soul is safe and their eternity is secure. And friends, if you have confidence that your soul is safe and your eternity is secure, even if the worst thing this side of heaven befalls you, you can be anxious about nothing, but in everything, in prayer and supplication, make your request be known to God, because he has got it in his hand. Jesus entered Jerusalem to go to the cross to provide worried and anxious sinners peace with God, so that they may also have the peace of God.